just being your own therapist. What does a therapist do? They ask questions, they listen to you, they stay open, curious, they create a safe space for you to express yourself. While you express yourself, they take their notes and they observe your patterns. When you're doing shadow work, when you're being your own therapist, you're essentially taking notes on the daily about your behavior, your triggers, the things that you're experiencing. And then every few weeks or a few months or so, you go back and you look at everything that you've written. You observe your own patterns. You try and find out what words you're using repeatedly. You try and see what triggers constantly come up for you, what people constantly trigger you. And then you make an assessment as to where these patterns are coming from and what you need to work on and how you're going to work on it. In the meantime, as you start to build an awareness around your behavior, especially when you're triggered, you start to change that behavior. You start to find new ways of relating, more healthy ways of relating. Let's take that personal shadow work model and apply it to the collective. We have ample material on our pattern as a collective, recorded in the form of history. Yes, history is written by the victors, and yes, the details are muddy, but we can still get a sense of our greatest shadow quality as a species. And that's violence. Violence against nature, violence against animals, and most importantly, human on human violence. Our tendency towards violence, our tendency to practice of bestiality towards one another isn't new. We're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years worth of aggression in our bodies. World War II was supposed to be the war that ends all wars, but the thing is that even though that promise wasn't kept, it doesn't mean that the desire isn't there. If you're on this side of TikTok, it means that you want to see a peaceful world. You don't want to see violence in the world anymore. But as regular individual people, what can we do when violence has become so institutionalized and a part of the systems of power? We can start in our heart. We can start by recognizing that violence isn't just guns and artillery and war. Violence is a tone. It's an ugly word, a limiting thought. It can be subtle, in the form of passive aggression. It is everything you do or say, every movement you make from a closed heart. For example, when
get those vibrations up,
there
people.
are a million ways that you can react
Love
or
thy
respond
neighbor.
to that person, to the situation. You could move from a place of resentment, for example, and say something like, "Oh my God, how many times do I have to tell you that that bothers me?" You could say nothing about it and be passive-aggressive about it later.
Basically, be
things
humble.
like, "Oh, so you're just going to do that thing again that I clearly didn't respond to at all? Okay, cool." You could be reactive and abrasive and mean and say something like, "I need you to stop right now because you look really stupid." All of these reactions are coming from a
Kindness
closed
is
heart,
key.
a heart closed by fear, resentment, anger. Now, if you open your heart, you're not suppressing your aggression, but rather you're saying, "I am a being whose aggression finds expression in love." With an open heart, you feel the pain of what has been said or done without any fear. You take a minute to understand what you're feeling. You let yourself remember that whatever has been done, it's been done by another human being who you do have love for. You can say something in all honesty and authenticity like, "I don't like that, that doesn't make me feel good, and I can't be around you if you're going to talk to me that way or treat me that way."
Exactly. They're not going where you're going.
Now, if that person can't respect your boundary or doesn't want to offer you their understanding, then this is the real crux of the work. This is where you get to decide whether you honor your open heart or you resort to violence. This is where it gets tricky, right? When someone doesn't give you what you want, whether that's on the personal, the individual level, or the collective level. We go to war because one state can't get what it wants from another state. And rather than retreating, rather than reassessing, rather than making a new deal that would benefit the collective more, states will resort to violence. But you don't have to. You can choose peace. You can choose detachment. You can choose